Hey, Military Spouse Magazine. This is Megan Brown coming to you today with Jen Pasquale of Pride and Grit. Welcome, Jen. I'm so glad that you're with us today.
Thanks, Megan. Happy to be here.
So I'm really excited to share your story with our readers. We have spent the last, 45 minutes just really getting to know each other. And I wanted to share with our readers a snapshot of who you are and what you do. So tell us a little bit about you and Pride and Grit.
So Pride and Grit is a social enterprise that I started about 3.5 years ago, coming up on 4 years later this year. And it is dedicated to the identity and personal development journey of seasoned military spouses and helping them find the community, the resources, and the development opportunities that they need to really thrive in their next season.
Ooh, I love that. I love that. As a seasoned spouse myself, I know that gets me really excited. And what I really wanted to talk about, man, Pride and Grit is so cool. A social enterprise designed for military spouses who are really looking for answers about who they are and where their strengths lie, and really what the future could hold. So tell me a little bit about Pride and Grit's programming, specifically your Evolve retreats.
Yeah, so the Evolve Retreat is something we're really, really proud of and really excited to hopefully continue to offer to the community. We launched it last year during the pandemic, and as an all virtual event, had really fantastic attendance, and more importantly, got to make some incredible connections with individuals and with content that really could help them think through transition. We talked a lot about what is transition going to look like in a marriage? How does that change a marriage when you're no longer kind of beholden to the military life? So we talked about a lot of really important topics to include identity. And that allowed us this year to launch a even more comprehensive event that was exclusively focused on identity and giving us 2 days to just kind of reflect and invest in ourselves and figure out, what do we need to really be strong as we exit military life? What does that look like? And start to put some language to that and some intentionality to that. So it's always a lot of fun to get those folks back together.
Oh my gosh, that is so exciting. And when we talked and had this conversation around transition, there's something that I found so interesting, right? Like, when should military spouses start thinking about what transition will be like? Is it at the end of military service, or is there a better place to start exploring?
Well, and this is a question I couldn't have answered a couple of years ago, but what I've learned listening to the folks in our community is that when you set two people loose on sort of transition at the same time, so you've got the service member who's doing their own transition, and you've got the spouse who's now potentially losing their community, potentially losing that sort of that safety net. As much as there's uncertainty, there is some safety in kind of knowing what we can predict, right? That there's going to be PCSs, there's going to be certain things that are happening now, like the world's your oyster, right? You can do whatever you want, and that's overwhelming. And so what we've heard from folks is that kind of setting both adults in the house loose on that transition and that kind of identity shift at the same time is a lot of weight for a marriage and for a household. And so what we're really trying to do is say, okay, we get that the service member can only do so much so early, but why don't we support the spouse through starting that process a couple of years out, figuring out where are they? What do they want? What does life look like for them on the other side of service? Maybe it looks identical, but maybe they want to make a huge shift, and there's things they can do to really prep them so that when that transition happens, someone in the family kind of has a flag permanently planted and feels strong in what's next for them. And so both folks aren't having that struggle that can happen sometimes. It's a big milestone.
Yes, yes. And for the readers who are listening to the craziness in the background of my screen, all four of my children are home. And apparently there is a serious game of tag going on right now. So hopefully you got to hear all the amazing things Jen was saying. And I think the other thing that I think about when I am approaching the task of transitioning out of military service, my husband's been active duty for 18 years, and we are also having those conversations early. What do we think it'll look like? What should I be looking at? What should I be developing? What should I be pursuing as we kind of approach the task as a family of working through a transition? And so I think it's super valuable, the opportunities and the discussions that you're having over at Pride and Grit. And so how can people get involved? How can they find you?
So the easiest, couple of easy ways. First, our website is just prideandgrit.com spelled out. And then for social, both for Facebook and Instagram, we're just at Pride and Grit. And then I actually spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. So if folks are on LinkedIn, they can certainly find us there too.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Jen, thank you so much for taking some time out today, telling us all about Pride and Grit and specifically the Evolve retreats that you have been hosting over the last few years. We're excited to see all of the new things that are coming down the pipeline. Y'all stay tuned. Make sure you follow them on social, check them out, read their content, follow the blog, and learn more about how they are engaging a community around transition. Thanks, Jen, for being here.
Thank you, Megan.